really apologizing is respecting,
Yes.
right? You're offering respect when you apologize.
Yep.
And forgiveness is love.
Yeah.
And so it restores that marriage relationship.
Mm.
Um, it's worth the humble pie. Welcome to the Simplified Organization Podcast, 15-minute conversations with real moms about managing our homes and family life cheerfully to the glory of God. We can actually enjoy housework and love being homemakers when we focus on truth and work with gratitude. I'm Mystie Winckler, author of the book Simplified Organization, Learn to Love What Must Be Done, and I run Convivial Circle, an online community helping women to excel at homemaking and do life cheerfully. And one thing that I don't talk a lot about on my blog or podcast is marriage. But marriage is the cornerstone of the homes that we are building. We wouldn't be homemakers or mothers without our husbands. And a happy marriage is a huge part of a happy home. I'm bringing on the whole Simply Convivial team. Myself, Stephanie Mons, our community manager, Lisa Moulton, our operations manager, and Abby Wall, our strategist and mentor member. My husband and I have been married for 23 years. We have 5 kids with 2 sons launched and 3 still left at home. Stephanie has also been married for 23 years. She has a 19-year-old, 16-year-old, and 14-year-old. Abby has been married for 21 years and has 5 teenagers, all living at home. And Lisa has been married for 18 years with a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and 6-year-old. We're basing our marriage discussion off of Laura Doyle's book, The Empowered Wife. Stephanie brought this book into our community and has run book clubs several times about this book, and we have seen such fruit happening in our community and separately. I've read it twice now, and so I hope our conversations about being good and happy wives are thought-provoking and a blessing to you. So that's a great transition into the second skill that wives need, which is being able to give respect, to be respectful to our husbands. And, I've read all kinds of Christian marriage books that do talk about love and respect. And it is a biblical command that wives respect their husband. But I think there's a tendency in Christian books to not get specific because then people will say you're being a legalist, right? And so in a non-Christian book, she says, wives, respect your husbands, and then lays out all these examples. It's like, oh, I have a better picture of what both respect and disrespect actually are. I felt like it really broadened that I realized that my category of respect was actually way too small.
Yeah.
So I found it very helpful. I also found it very hilarious that in a large part, her book boils down to, okay, you want a happy marriage? Wives, respect your husbands. I'm like, who knew? Turns out it's just true.
The other thing too is she said the reason she got this, she just asked people, older ladies who had happy marriages, what they were doing. That's what she
Right.
did. She went and did the Titus 2 model. And this was the thing that they kept saying is respect your husband. And that's super disrespectful. I just think that that's a very humble place to go to as well,
Right.
right? That you're asking for good advice, sound advice, you have a happy marriage. What are you doing? And I love that.
Yeah. So what have been your takeaways from this book about showing respect? Maybe which of her examples stood out to you, or maybe they helped you recognize an example in your own life or different changes that you've made to increase the amount of respect that you're giving your husband.
So I think a good point that she makes is that respect is not earned, right? A lot of women think, well, he wasn't acting nicely or loving. So therefore, I don't have to respect him, right? Nope, that's not true. Because in the same way that we don't have to earn our husband's love, he does not have to earn our respect. We just give it. That's part of the relationship. And for me, I realized that it's a lot easier to respect my husband if I trust him, and so focus on trusting him. And it's easier to trust my husband when I realize that I need to trust God, who has given me my husband. And obviously, here is this gift. Please now trust, God for giving you this gift, Stephanie. And now you can trust your husband, right? Like, we obviously got married thinking our husbands were wonderful, right? He is so smart and handsome and funny and hardworking, whatever it is we might have thought about our husbands. And suddenly we've been married for 10 years. And it's like, well, maybe he's not like that anymore. No, he still is like that. You have stopped treating him like he is. So when you go back to treating him like he is so smart and so helpful and so loving, you'll see he still is all of those things. So that was kind of my takeaways about like respect in general. And a big part of respect that I have learned is to just be quiet sometimes. Like, we as wives think, well, I'm going to be helpful and I'm going to like give him advice on this thing that is totally his thing, but I'm just going to jump on in because I'm so helpful. Like, no, if it's his thing, let him do it. Like, do you appreciate if people come in while you're cooking and start giving you all sorts of advice? No. So if it's his thing, keep your hands off, right? Like, so that has been helpful for me. So like, we had to get a new microwave. So it's like an over the stove microwave. So like my husband's installing it, and like, he's trying to install it, and he's getting kind of frustrated because sometimes the directions are not clear, right? But of course he wants my help. Like, he's asking me to stand there and like give him tools or whatever. And sometimes he would ask me a question. I'm not even looking at the instructions. I don't know why he's asking me the question. So I've learned to he's talking to himself. He's speaking out loud. He's not actually asking me. So I'm going to give this a minute. If he really wants my opinion, he'll probably ask again. He's probably just speaking out loud at these instructions because he's handling this. Even though I'm handing him a screwdriver here and there, he is handling it. And I obviously can't lift this big old microwave into place. I can't do all this stuff. I don't know how to drill into walls. Like, I know it all in theory, right? But I can't actually do it. So I need to trust that my husband can do it. And so it went way smoother than other, home projects in the past where I decided to be helpful. So went a lot more smoothly. There was no argumenting, no like disagreement that happened from the microwave installation.
Yeah, we call the GPS feature or the maps feature a marriage saver, because Matt often would tease me. Luckily, my husband takes my helpfulness with a big old fat grain of salt, and he just teases me about it, which is great. But I often, would tell him how to drive, and he's like, it is amazing to me that I got anywhere without you by my side. He's got a very dry sense of humor. I'm like, yeah, okay. So when I read this, I was like, oh, I should just not tell him what to do. And it doesn't matter if I, correct. Like, I just really need to stop. He's a great driver. He loves driving, and I can just appreciate that and not say anything anymore. And it's great. Every once in a while I slip up, and then he just looks at me. He's like, amazing that I can get, he reminds me of that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm sorry about that. One of the things I think too, though, is it gave me the courage to just start apologizing for when I was disrespectful. And, that can be very humbling, but I know it's good to repent. And so therefore I just started apologizing a lot. And, oftentimes my husband was like, you weren't disrespectful. I was like, and he was like, oh, and I just was like, I need your forgiveness. I was super grumpy last night for a lot of reasons that don't matter, but I just want to apologize for being grumpy and disrespectful to you. And he's like, no apology necessary. And of course you're forgiven. Like, all the time. He has never held it against me or anything like that. And I just so appreciate that, it's funny that a secular book reminds me to repent, right? and keep a short account and get right after it. And then it just restores that fellowship. And it's so good because yeah, I act irritable and grumpy and not nice sometimes. So
Yeah, she did emphasize apologizing
yeah.
when you have been disrespectful.
Mhm.
And so it's like, that is such good advice. That is what we should do. And I love that situation that you described, Abby, because really apologizing is respecting,
Yes.
right? You're offering respect when you apologize.
Yep.
And forgiveness is love.
Yeah.
And so it restores that marriage relationship.
Mhm.
It's worth the humble pie.
Yeah. And the more you do it, the easier it is. You just get into a habit of it. And when you don't do it, you, it makes, it affects it. It affects it. And so you might as well just get over yourself and do it, because what are you winning by being resentful? Like, that's the other thing too. It's like, why can't we just say, hey, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I was disrespectful. Like, that takes 10 seconds and for so much time of just happiness. And I think that so often we just get real comfortable with that resentment, like, bad attitudes. And it's untrue, it's unhelpful, and it's unnecessary. And so we just need to go for it.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only person who's been a backseat driver.
Yep.
My husband drives completely different than I do, and I've had to learn to not pay attention at all to how he drives. He's a much more cautious driver. I'm not. So that's something I've had to learn. But I actually don't offer directions unless he asks. Like, if we're going somewhere new, I'm like, do you want me to give directions? And I'll just use GPS. And I'm like, it says turn. I'm just the relayer of the information. But I'm so glad I'm not the only one. But yes, apologizing does get a lot easier. I actually had to apologize to my husband yesterday for getting involved in how he parented the kids or how he helped one of the kids with something. And I had to apologize for it because that it's still a new dance for me, having him be so involved in parenting and things like that. So that's been my struggle with being respectful, is just staying on my own lane and trusting that he is a great dad and he has something to teach them that I can't. So, and yeah, trusting in him. It's difficult but easy at the same time. And we really did all marry wonderful man. But yeah, it helps to apologizing brings that intimacy back right away, which is really handy.
So every summer inside Convivial Circle, Stephanie runs a book club through The Empowered Wife, where she spends 6 weeks, 1 week per skill, helping everyone think through how they can be happier, more respectful wives. We highly recommend that you read this book, but it's especially helpful to read it in community. So either gather some friends around to read and discuss, or come join us in Convivial Circle this summer and make your home a happier place by having a happier marriage. And we're not done talking about this book, so be sure to stay tuned for the next episode. We have 4 total, so you don't want to miss a single one. And of course, a happy marriage always includes repenting, rejoicing, and repeating.